Little Mac is a very polarizing character. He's supposed to have an extremely strong and oppressive ground game, and to make up for that, he's supposed to have a very weak aerial game. Since this was how he was intended to be designed, a lot of people default to thinking that his aerials are completely useless, and that couldn't really be further from the truth. All of Little Mac's aerials are extremely useful, and they all end up complementing his grounded kit in one way or another. But there's one aerial in particular that is so weird and unique that I feel like it deserved a video of its own, and that move is neutral air. This move is really unique because it is the fastest aerial in the game, coming out frame 2, and it is extremely low on end lag, but it makes up for it by having a garbage hitbox and being negative on hit. But this interesting combo of being frame 2 and being negative on hit makes it have a deceptive amount of utility that all ends up working out very well for Little Mac. And I'm just going to be covering some of that tech and utility today. So let's get right into it. Number 1, the shitbox. Now, even though I did just tell you Little Mac's neutral air is negative on hit, that isn't entirely true. The arm hitbox of Little Mac's Nair is indeed negative on hit, no matter what. But if you look at the hitbox visualization, if you look at the hitbox on his butt, you will find the shitbox. The deal is with the shitbox that makes it even worth talking about is that it actually has knockback growth, unlike Little Mac's arm hitbox. Because of this, at higher percents, you can actually true combo off of this, while you couldn't off of the normal arm hitbox. Obviously, the main problem with this is, if landing normal neutral air in a match wasn't already difficult, now you're going to have to land the shitbox, which is even smaller. It's one of the smallest hitboxes in the entire game, which makes it extremely difficult to land. But if you do, you can get true combos off of it. Number 2, Crossups and fakeouts. Because of how fast neutral air is, it can be pretty hard to react to. You can use it to cross an opponent up, drift in either direction, or run up and fade away. As you fade away, you can cover yourself with something like forward air, which can start tech chases at mid to high percents, or jolt haymaker if you think the commitment is worth it. You can also use a double jump afterwards to retreat to a platform and call the opponent out if they chase you down. I think the best option with the most potential out of this is straight lunge. In certain matchups against characters with a lot of multi-hits, it's especially useful. You can cancel straight lunge into all sorts of things too, but I'm getting a little bit off topic. Hitting your opponent with neutral air and fading back is a good mix-up for figuring out what your opponent is going to do out of hit stun. Doing this will also just mess with their momentum because of how non-committal and versatile the mix-up is. Because of how fast it hits and how it lacks basically any knockback or hit stun, landing this will often make your opponent panic and do an unintentional input from expecting a different option or accidentally buffering something during the hit stun. Remember to also try attack canceling and reverse aerial rushing the neutral air. Attack canceling will stop momentum and prevent a cross-up, while reverse aerial rushing the neutral air can have the elusive shitbox, as I just talked about, land, which is a lot more reliable for follow-ups. Number 3, shield pressure. With how fast neutral air is, you can have some solid pressure on shield if it's used in conjunction with other moves. You can do some of the same stuff I just talked about, cross-ups, drifting, or fading away, but you can change the options around based on the character you're fighting and the opponent's specific habits. You can call out empty hops out of shield with neutral air in a full hop forward air or wave maker. You can use reverse aerial rush nair to cross up and land with a tomahawk grab. You can drift away with attack cancel neutral air or cross up nair to bait out of shield options. You can use full hop neutral air on taller characters like Ganon to cross up and drift even further away than you could on other characters' shields, and using this can even beat out really good out of shield options like Cloud's up B and Game & Watch's up B. If their shield is damaged, you can use neutral air or down air to shield poke them, and if they're near ledge, you can do a nair cross-up string into a hit lag maker at ledge, which will break damaged shields. If they drop shield early, you can follow up a nair/reverse aerial rush nair cross-up with forward air or back air at mid to high percents to start a tech chase that's difficult to react to. If your opponent mashes an option out of shield, you can follow up neutral air with an up B, which comes out immediately and gives Little Mac a few invincibility frames to ignore an opponent's offensive option. Obviously, be careful with this one though, since up B will put you in free fall. Since Little Mac's landing low profiles a bit, you can fast fall after you hit an opponent's shield and be safe from some rising aerials at a shield. It's very matchup dependent though, works on stuff like Sonic up smash, Lucina neutral air, or Wario neutral air, and it can easily be called out with a shield grab. You can use neutral air to pressure everyone's shield, but keep in mind that shield poking, keeping pressure, and landing follow-ups after the initial neutral air will generally just be easier on bigger characters with bigger shields. You can also use neutral air to pressure shields on platforms. If you time your aerials, you can pressure the shield without the risk of getting grabbed or hit with a premature out of shield option, since you can hit their shield and fast fall through the platform. Opponents are a lot more eager to hold shield on platforms since they can't easily get grabbed out of shield. Because of this, Little Mac has a pretty cool looking shield break setup if his opponent holds the shield too long. If you're pressuring someone's shield who's all the way up on the top battlefield platform, time your double jump with the height of the bottom battlefield platform so you don't end up landing on the top platform, which will allow you to pressure safely. Number 4. Whiff punishing. When it comes to running up on an opponent in neutral and punishing a whiffed move, neutral air can be used to stuff out lower end lag moves, as situational as it is. Jab 1 is generally Little Mac's fastest option for whiff punishing because it's frame 1, but in some cases, neutral air is actually just as fast as a whiff punish option. Let me explain why. Because of how short Jab 1's range is, Mac is gonna have to dash into his opponent 99% of the time in order to effectively whiff punish. What this means is that Mac is gonna have to do the initial dash, which just takes 14 frames, wait for the skid animation to finish, which takes 4 frames, and then be able to input Jab 1. Because of the skid, this makes a frame 1 option on paper a frame 5 option in practice. Because of this, Nair becomes just as fast of an option as Jab, because jumping out of an initial dash cancels the skid animation. The jump squat takes 3 frames, plus the 2 frame start for neutral air, and ba-bam! Neutral air comes out the same frame as Jab 1 would. This is cool, but still situational. I'd only go for Nair to whiff punish instead of Jab 1 if you're whiff punishing a rising aerial or some type of attack that keeps your opponent in the air. Cause if you land Jab 1 on an airborne opponent, sometimes they can jump out of the rapid jab, gentleman jab follow-ups, or just mash jump and get out of it. Number 5. Frame traps. Landing neutral air on a grounded opponent will lift them up off the ground for about 1 to 4 frames. It changes from character to character depending on how fast their fall speed is. There's a tiny window where the opponent could input an option. Most characters can only input a double jump in that short of a time frame with some exceptions, but otherwise they're going to have to go through the 4 frames of landing lag. In order to exploit those landing lag frames, you can only pull off these frame traps with landing neutral air. You can always just estimate the timing for the landing neutral air. However, if you want to have Nair come out as late as possible to have the largest possible opening window, then it's time to do some math and figure out setups into having Nair come out as late as possible. Short hop is 33 frames, full hop takes 44 frames, neutral air 15, forward air 36, back air 37, down air 27, and up air 41. With these numbers in mind, here are some setups to get the perfect last frame of landing neutral air. All that talk about wasted frames will come back around in a minute, but now that all the math is out of the way, let's get to the actual frame trap itself. Neutral air puts the opponent in hit stun for 9 frames, and neutral air gives a Little Mac 10 frames of landing lag. Since landing the neutral air puts the opponent in midair, they can't frame 1 shield out of it. Using jab after the landing nair is the safest bet for a frame trap since the opponent would have to use an option that's frame 2 or less. Most characters don't have an aerial option this fast, with exceptions like Pokemon Trainer's Down B, Snake's Grenades, and a handful of characters with frame 2 air dodges. But if your opponent doesn't use that window or simply doesn't have an option fast enough, you could go for down tilt, up tilt, forward tilt, or up B. This is where my mentions of dropped frames come in. If you go for the setups that have more wasted frames, you'll have less follow-ups to choose from. These wasted frames can also be used to your advantage though. If your opponent mashes an attack or air dodge out of one of these setups, it will extend their landing lag even more. This lets you basically do whatever you want out of the neutral air, even something like KO punch. Now, let's get platforms in the mix here. There are setups for the Nair frame trap for getting on platforms or getting off of them. With all of these setups, they have to be buffered to get the perfect amount of frame advantage. Number 6, dragging. If you land one neutral air on an opponent, you can technically just keep dragging along with them during hit lag and land a couple more neutral airs afterwards. The thing is, neutral air is -4 on hit against the entire roster with the exceptions of Bowser, K. Rool, Donkey Kong, and DDD, where it's -5 on hit. So unfortunately, you can simply double jump out of these Nair strings. If you catch them without a double jump though, then their options to escape are much more limited. Air dodging out is a universal option, but if you catch an opponent off stage with no double jump, an air dodge would just result in their own death. If your opponent has an aerial attack that it's frame 6 or less, then they can escape with that. If the move is exactly frame 6, then it'll just trade. Using an aerial out of the Nair strings does not guarantee your opponent's safety though. If the move takes too long, it'll stick them in end lag, which could result in them SDing anyways. Fall speed is super important for these neutral air drags. Mac falls pretty fast, and he won't be able to drag a character down if they have a slower fall speed than him. So besides just cyberbullying people by gimping them with Little Mac neutral air, you can use neutral air's weird hit stun and stuff to your advantage. If you hit an opponent with neutral air off stage and they have no double jump, their only options are to air dodge, throw out an aerial, or use their recovery move. Any recovery hitbox with 8 frames or more of startup can easily be beaten out by following up the neutral air with a slip counter. Any option that's frame 11 or slower can be beaten out by neutral air into double jump down air. But if you want to go for super spicy sauce followed by an SD, you can drag the Nair down into a haymaker on bigger characters. Your best opportunity to go for these neutral air drags are if you successfully land a 2 frame that doesn't kill. If the opponent used their jump to recover, which chances are they did, then they won't have one after being 2 framed, giving you the opportunity to drag them down with neutral air. And yeah, that's a bunch of stuff that you can do with Little Mac's neutral air. Huge thanks to the Little Mac Discord and Fido1 for figuring out all of this stuff. This video would not have been possible without them, so go join the Little Mac Discord, it's an awesome place. I stream on Twitch every once in a while, just playing Little Mac, talking about Little Mac, practicing stuff with Little Mac, so check that out if you're interested. Have a nice rest of your day, keep that Little Mac grind up, and I'll see all of you guys around.